Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second annual live Strip Tour Conference. On behalf of Orthman, we would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all. We appreciate you taking your time off your busy schedules and being with us today. My name is Brian Nevote, the host and founder of this live Strip Tour Conference. Today, joining me on stage is Richard Fly from Bayer, South Africa. I have two gentlemen that will be joining us live from the United States. He is a learning center agronomist for Bayer water utilization in Gothenburg. He helps plan and execute research trials and demonstrate plots and address challenges to row crop agriculture. At the center, they enjoy showing the latest seed crop protection, water management, digital ag technologies to thousands of visitors across the globe. Each year, the center tackles new projects to provide answers, questions facing crop production and water management. Him and his wife enjoy raising kids and vegetables on their acre farm near Kozak, Nebraska. I'm pleased to welcome Mark Riemann from Bayer, USA. The gentleman next to him in the same place, United States, joining me from Orthman today, who has been a soil scientist for the last 32 years at the USDA and has been the lead agronomist at Orthman for 10 years. Here to join us this week to talk about precision tillage, Mike Peterson. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you guys' time. And Mark, I know you've got a couple of questions and a few slides. Richard, I know you guys have a couple of things that you guys want to share from Bayer as well. I really appreciate the time that you guys have taken to be with us. And obviously, last of all, Mike Peterson, thank you, our lead agronomist. So Mark, I'll hand it over to you. I know you've got a couple of things that you would like to discuss and talk about.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hear the sun just came up, but I did want to highlight, some of the things that we do here at the Learning Center. We work quite closely with Orthman and particularly with Mike Peterson and some of his cohorts. We are only about 30 miles west of Lexington, where Orthman's headquarters are located. So it's a good working relationship, and it's really been one that, I think working with Bayer on the high plains through the Learning Center and through other TDRs, it's really changed the face of what row crop tillage and soil water conservation and things like that have looked like on the high plains. So I did want to highlight what it's like right now. In Nebraska, and we kind of have the is it spring. So yesterday we planted soybeans. The soil temp was about 4.4 degrees Celsius. The air temp was 0 degrees and the wind chill was about -6. So not a very pleasant day to be on the planter, but things are looking up. It's just taken a little bit longer to warm up this year than it normally has. Sorry. The agenda I kind of have to go over today. Is really an overview of the Learning Center, a little bit about regional corn production here, talk a little bit about a new Bayer product that we've had a lot of, been doing a lot of work on called short stature corn, talk about some of the work we do on regional production issues in Nebraska and really the high plains, a few other Learning Center focuses that we have, and then if there's any time, Mike, you can jump in anytime, and then maybe there'll be a little time for questions at the end.
Sure.
So really, our mission is Bayer, and I think Richard will talk about some of it, but it really is to deliver world-class innovation we're trying to pioneer the digital transformation in agriculture. It certainly has taken leaps forward, and we've seen that especially during this past year where many things have gone virtual, such as this. We're looking to set new standards for sustainability across the industry, which for a company that is really invested in crop protection and seeds and traits, that is something that is of emphasis for us. And then we're trying to tie it all together in what we call tailored solutions. So when we bring solutions to farmers, it's really not about, buying a bag of seed or maybe you just buy your herbicides or fungicides. It's really about, if we put all of that together, what type of system can we set up for the farmer, adding the seeds and traits, the crop protection, and then the digital farming piece in there together. So the Water Utilization Learning Center itself opened in June of 2009. So I've been the agronomist since that time. I was prior to that working on our Drought Guard Hybrids corn trait, living in Kansas, and I planted dryland plots. Then I got the opportunity to move up here and work at the Learning Center, which I grew up on a dryland farm in northern Nebraska, so it was a great place. A lot of the research I was going to get to do, or demonstrations I was going to get to do, was going to benefit people like my family farming back home.
Yeah.
We've got about 130 hectares for cropping systems demonstrations. And every year we do hundreds of demonstrations to look at high plains and central plains challenges. And we've had over 50,000 visitors from 65 plus countries over the years. Last year was the only year we didn't get in, we couldn't say we had thousands of visitors because Bayer has certainly been being pretty cautious with COVID.
Correct. Mark, sorry, just a quick question. I see, you've said there over 50,000 visitors from 65 different countries. How many, just maybe an estimate, how many people during a year do you guys get at Bayer? Obviously, at your trial farm, how many people do you guys normally get there during a year? From what countries do you guys have? Is it all over the world? Obviously, with COVID, you guys obviously taking having a strain.
Yeah, I would say normally we're in the range of 3,000 visitors a year. I think farmers are traveling a little bit less, and obviously was down last year. But we have a lot of relationships with countries I can think of, like Ukraine, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico. We've had many visitors from Africa, Australia, really all over the globe. And some of them are actually farmers from those areas. And then sometimes you'll get university students or visitors like that from those countries. So it really is a neat place to, we get to show what we have to show, but then you get to listen to those farmers and how their cropping systems work and what challenges they have.
Correct.
So it really is a fun experience.
I'm sure it is.
And then we do a lot of research into, seeds and traits and digital farming, crop protection. The main crops we work with are corn is by far and away number one, but then soybeans, winter wheat, and grain sorghum. And we work to, really move knowledge out to customers and even to employees who maybe aren't very familiar with some of our newer technologies. We have a sustainability focus, trying to, decrease the use of water and other inputs. And then we also work at training new agronomists. And that's where, when we bring like Mike to the farm and Jeff Dakota and people like that, they help us do some of our agronomic training for people who will have full-time roles in Bayer out there in the field eventually.
All right, that's interesting. I'm sure Mike is there, and he can come in there on that. What type of training he does. I know him and myself communicate quite a few times, and we talk about it. That he has to go out and do some training on some strip till lands, and like we're busy doing that now here in South Africa. we started this year with our own trial farm, and we'll be doing our own start training and giving that information out to growers to help them out into the future.
Yeah, and it is really good when you can rely on experts like Mike to help us out with any questions we have, whether it be kind of what fertility to apply, how to apply it with the strip till system, and then again, just having him spend some time with our trainees like this past year was really valuable for us. As far as what we have at the Learning Center to work with, and I don't know if Mike was probably out here first year helping us do some of the setup work. We didn't own our own strip tiller at first, so Orthman would come in and do some like custom strip tilling for us to do testing. But we've got 7 linear irrigation systems, so we don't have a center pivot. We just have linears because those tend to work better in terms of straight plots to work with. We've got 120 drip irrigation zones, so we do some subsurface drip irrigation as well as overhead. And we power all that with 4 wells that we have, and groundwater here is fairly abundant yet, so we're very fortunate. And that rolls into about 50 dryland hectares that we do research work on, and 80 irrigated hectares. And then we also work with other groups in Bayer who are outside of the Learning Center. So we have locations where we work with variable rate irrigation to do product testing in Southwest Kansas, Northeast Colorado, Northwest Kansas, Southeast Nebraska, Northeast Nebraska, and then here at the Learning Center, we've got those 5. We have 5 of the linear irrigation systems with variable rate technology. And when we talk about variable rate, we're talking about having the ability to vary the irrigation by the nozzle. Mm-hmm. So we can make blocks of corn where we're testing, one gets 50% irrigation, one gets, 100% of the water you're supposed to have. So maybe in a trial, 228 millimeters is your full irrigation rate, and then 114 millimeters is the lower irrigation rate. And you can really look at product performance across both of those environments for our producers, because many of them are pretty limited in the amount of water that they have here on the high plains.
Yeah, so Mark, just coming back to that, is you guys do use some of those blocks with strip till, right? Some of those blocks are used with a strip till machine?
Yes, and really the interesting thing there, and on the center pivot, like the picture there, the farmer strip tills it in a circle because that's how he farms his ground. And then we've had to develop some pretty specialized relationships with in particular Trimble and other software providers to allow us to plant small plots on that curve mm-hmm. to follow. But we've been able to work with them. But yeah, those systems, by and large, it would be strip till in that environment.
Well, I hope one day I can come out there. It looks very interesting. It's not far from the Orthman facility, so hopefully one day, and not only me, but a couple of growers can come out and have a look what you guys are doing out there. Yeah, no, it's not. It's about 25 minutes on the interstate, so not bad at all. And then another resource that we have, and I think the story behind this one's pretty good. So it's our rainout shelter, and we actually had a Bayer employee by the name of Hendrik Kruger. He was from South Africa, and he was actually managing the learning centers at the time, and we were getting more rain. We didn't have the ability in like 2009 and 10 to show a lot of drought stress when he visited. So he came up with the idea of we need a rainout shelter, and basically it's a 49-meter long building by 24.5 meters wide. Mm-hmm. That when it rains, it's got sensors on it that detect precipitation, and then on that rail that you see kind of in the foreground of that picture, yep. The building actually automatically closes. We don't have to do anything to it. You can also use text messages and things like that, but it really provides a great environment
to really look at drought stress. So you can use it in, to simulate all types of environments, whether that be, extreme drought stress, full irrigation, and you can key in on, drought stress timing, because so often we do get a little bit of rain at some point that will kind of mess up what you're trying to do as far as irrigation and water stress. And then I've got the question down there, can you raise corn on 150 millimeters of water? And we did find...
I'm sure we've got that a couple of times.
Yeah, you could, I mean, the wisdom and what you see from universities would be, it does take, at least, they probably say 250 millimeters to raise corn, but we've been able to, by timing that irrigation or using very limited amounts of water around pollination, you can set an ear on every plant. It'll only be like that big, but it does produce some corn for you at 150 millimeters.
Richard, obviously you've experienced that here in South Africa. Well, we've experienced it because we rely just on rain here. I'm sure you've experienced it as well. What the guys say, how much rainfall they actually need in certain years, right?
Yeah, I think the key comes down to plant population.
Yeah.
So, you guys will probably be at about 70,000 plants per hectare, per acre. And, no, sorry, I'm getting my numbers wrong, 30 to 40,000, right?
Yeah, like 36,000 per acre.
Yeah, 30 to 40,000.
About 90,000 per hectare.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're looking at about 6,000 per acre. And then on 150 mils timed at the right time with the right germplasm, you're able to get yields of like 4 tons per hectare. And that's the difference between head above water for a lot of our growers in South Africa. And yeah, it raises interesting questions when you get into the short statured corn later, Mark.
Yes. How many plants per hectare did you say? I missed that.
So you're looking at about, some of the guys are planting as low as 15,000 plants per hectare.
Okay.
Wide rows, you've got up to 8 feet between rows in some cases. So really different way of thinking about how you raise corn as opposed to what's done in the US. But those populations are starting to go up, and the row widths are getting narrower because farmers understand the benefit of that. And then your water management becomes really key.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, the reason we had to build the rainout shelter, it really came about was that we just had too variable of precip. I won't go into too much on this slide, but in Nebraska, it ranges, on the high end, 900 millimeters per year in southeast Nebraska and 400 millimeters per year in the west, which would, it decreases very fast. Typically, we get about 550 millimeters right here. But the problem is, we have had years where we've had up to 900 and 940. And then in 2012, which was the driest year, so that kind of puts in to your mind that, what the precipitation patterns are here. But it was 250 millimeters in Gothenburg, which was the driest year we've recorded. Recording started, I think, in about 1894.
So, interesting.
I did want to just go through, and I'll go through this quick, but typically we plant corn April 15th to May 15th. This year, guys are getting pushed back to the 25th. Harvest, September to November 20th, depending on your weather conditions. We let everything pretty much air dry. In the north, of course, they're drying corn in the fall. Our irrigated yields are typically 14 ton to 21 tons per hectare. And I think our county average with irrigated and dry land combined was about 15 tons per hectare in 2018. So that was an exceptional year in terms of yield. And dry land, you could always put a 0 on dry land, depending on how the year goes, but typically 6.3 to in that 12 ton per hectare range. Again, the irrigated planting density, as you mentioned, 70,000 to 90,000 seeds per hectare. And dry land, you know, typically right here, we don't go really below 44,000 seeds per hectare. As you move west, then you can see, you know, in eastern Colorado, 20,000 seeds per hectare, 24,000 seeds per hectare in that range. Just as a way to manage how dry it is every year, basically.
Yeah.
And then our row spacing, typically 76 and 91 centimeters. There's limited narrower rows. Typically we irrigate 200 millimeters on a year, but it could be from 0 to 500, depending on precipitation conditions. Nitrogen requirements, what we apply about 19.5 kilograms of nitrogen per ton of corn you plan to produce. So, you know, that works out to our 1 pound, you know, per bushel or something like that. And usually we're in that 200 to 225 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare total. Phosphorus typically goes on 60 to 80 kilograms per hectare. Potassium is typically not required. Our soil levels are around 400 to 500 parts per million. Although we do apply a little bit, it seems to help stock quality and some things like that at the end of the season. Sulfur, typically 20 or more kilograms per hectare. And zinc, usually around 1 kilogram per hectare, or maybe a little bit less. And then with tillage systems, so strip till and no till are the main tillage practice used. Conventional till has really, like I said, when we started here in about 2009, conventional till, all the farmers had bought like vertical tillage or high-speed discs, and we're using those. And then over the years, since then, it's really transitioned pretty quickly to here in the valley being 100% strip till almost. The only time you'll see conventional tillage is when you're doing small crops, you know, like alfalfa or things like that. No-till is used on many of the dryland acres, but then we also use a lot of strip till on the dryland acres as well for nutrient placement. And everyone really likes it just because the ability to, you know, put their liquid fertilizer or their dry fertilizer out there in a very precise way to encourage root growth and really get the most that they can out of their corn crop.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's a great topic, you know, that you brought up. There's, you know, I think pretty much our whole focus and outline is about, you know, let's ban that fertilizer. Let's get those nutrients for the roots to generate a better root growth. You know, we've done these trials now this past year, and I've seen it myself. You know, this is the first time that I'm doing agronomy work, and you know, I've realized it and seen it myself now between, you know, strip till, no till, and conventional till, which we've done here, and you know, you can see the different times of the year or the months between where the plants have grown, and you know, that's a great idea what you just said. There's, you know, banning that fertilizer at that certain depth. Mark, just a quick question is, I know we don't want to really go a lot of depth into it, but do you guys use different hybrids on the trials that you guys do, or is it just a standard one that you guys go through?
So we'll have up to like in a normal year, maybe 50 to 60 different hybrids that we're using for special purposes. Certain ones really fit, you know, the tougher acre dryland environment. Certain ones, you know, really produce the yields for us in our irrigated environments where we're trying to go for high yields, and then some of them are focused, on different crop rotations like corn on corn, versus maybe behind soybeans or wheat. But it can be, we've got a lot of seed bags out back right now.
Sure. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, and that's just, like I said, conventional till is pretty rare. There's a few people that, very few farmers here use it. The strip till there on your left is most of what gets done. And guys are, as I said, they've really transitioned over it, I think, because nutrient banding, root growth, and then we have seen some water savings by preserving that residue on the surface for them. And then this is really what we're going for in terms of fertilizer placement. So the green there would be, our strip till bands. Typically, we're running about 20 centimeters deep. Some farmers probably do it a little bit shallower. We're placing starter fertilizer on both sides of the row, and then we're also placing fertilizer in furrow on the seed. In a lot of cases, it's not completely necessary, but we're doing that out there in the field.
Do you guys, when you run a strip till, Mark, do you guys place fertilizer at certain depths, or do you just run it at just one certain depth?
For us, for the most part, we're doing it at one depth, right there at about 20 centimeters.
Okay.
We push a little deep. We don't have an advanced enough system where we can be running two products at multiple depths. We could be splitting it at depths, would be something we can do.
All right, and you guys use obviously liquid fertilizer, right?
Yes. Yeah, we are going to get a dry machine, I think, here delivered. It's coming a little late from somewhere else. So we may have that ability in the future as well.
Sure.
And then this is just what, fertilizer placement looks like on the planter itself. You've got in-furrow placement there with the, in the furrow with the lower arrow, and then disc placing fertilizer on each side of the row. And that's getting fairly popular here to have, placement on both sides of the row. There's a few high yield guys that have really advocated for it.
Mike, this is maybe a question to you. Is you've obviously seen the guys transition from yes, they're using strip till, and then they're using planter and putting fertilizer with a planter, pop up with a planter. Exactly that image that Mark has showed there is with that in furrow fertilizer and all that.
Yes, that's it's become more and more evident that what we can do with placement of fertilizer, as Mark has seen there at Gothenburg, that we're going towards what the crop physiology really tells the plant, and what we can help provide for that plant when it's growing through certain stages. With the arrow that is pointed that shows that it's disc placing fertilizer on either side, we want to make sure that we feed those early nodal roots that are coming out at node 2 and 3, so that we help get that plant to really start well. And by the time then it gets to V8, it is deep into the deeper placement that's gone by the strip till tool, and it takes off like gangbusters. We really want to be able to set the stage so the plant is growing proficiently, just like what you're trying to do with your teenage son. If you're wanting to make sure that he knows how to play South Africa football. So it's all the matter of making sure that we've done a really good job with all the tools that are available to the farmer. First off, being the strip till rig, and then secondly with the planter, and then if they want to come around and do a side dress operation or put it through the pivot, we make that happen. And Mark has done a really good job of studying all of that. Mark, would you back up one slide, the one that where you wash the roots?
Yes. There we go.
There we go. I remember when Mark did this, we were doing a root dig with Mark, and I don't know how many gallons of water you used to make that washed clean, but that was when we were doing some drought guard studies there at Gothenburg. And as you can see, that root system is incredibly prolific. Mark, do you remember how long those roots were? Weren't they something like?
They approached 90 to 96 inches. I'm failing on that. It was like, 8 feet.
Yeah, 2.5 meters almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were incredible. What Mark exposed here, as you can see, that root system was incredibly prolific, but because he fed it so well with the strip till system and where he placed his fertilizer in 4 different locations, I'm hoping that both you and Richard and your growers across the pond can see that this is what it'll do, and it can be an incredible plant.
Correct. Giving it enough food, pretty much, right?
Yes, at the right time, at the right place.
Yep.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that was, I had to haul water out to the field and ran a pressure washer. Yeah, it was, it took quite a while, but it made a really cool look at, what corn's actually doing underground, and we just don't see that that often.
Yep.
And then the next thing, and this kind of I think will be the last thing I talk about, but Mike's going to add some to it, but it's our short statured corn. Mm-hmm. So it really is just what it sounds like. It is a few feet shorter, as you can see there in the picture on the left. You've got a normal corn product, or the one that we would normally see here, and then you've got a short corn product. This one's probably not quite as short as some of them, but it does lower the height of that plant just a little bit. And really how it does it, you can see there on the left, you've got kind of your normal internode lengths, and short corn essentially kind of modifies some of the plant hormones and things like that really decreases that internode length. You tend to get a little bit more compact, maybe a little bit thicker stalk at the base, and then you get shorter internodes in there. And we're really looking at it, as you can see in the pictures, improved in-season access because of that reduced plant height. Mm-hmm. So for us, we could go in, do easier applications of maybe in-season nutrients, or, whether it's a fungicide or something like that we want to put in there. It has a pretty dense leaf canopy, so it provides good shade, keeping moisture under the canopy, keeping weeds down. We are seeing deeper roots faster with it, and Mike is helping us study that. And then some of those potential advantages really is improved end-of-season standability. You can see where the combine's up there in the right-hand corner. The tall corn is down, just a common problem for us. With tall corn, the short statured corn in the same environment standing very well. We're hoping to see increased stress tolerance, a better harvest index out of it, so more ear versus the amount of residue left in the field. And again, extended in-season access for potential benefits, improved harvestability, and then good yield stability in those fields. And there's really actually there's two approaches to SmartStax corn. The one with the green star is the one that is really advancing pretty quickly, and that's just naturally bred in with some naturally occurring short stature characteristics in elite germplasm. And that's actually had a beta launch in Mexico in 2020. So it is being grown commercially. It's not grown, I don't think, anywhere else or in the United States commercially yet. But we are doing a lot of testing work with it. Then there are biotech methods of doing it as far as converting the corn and keeping it short. And then we have one in discovery that's really early on, and it's through genome editing. So there's a few different ways to get to short corn. But, this is one of the advantages we see. So you can see in the center of that slide, basically you're looking at tall corn that went down in a windstorm, which we have unexpected, or I shouldn't call them unexpected, wind events every year, it seems like. And then, the short corn on the outsides of that plot look great in that environment. So they're just able to handle some of those things that Mother Nature throws at it for us every year. And this wasn't in the big wind event they had in Iowa this summer. This was just a kind of a more regular thunderstorm we have there on July 9th. And then this, Mike, is what I wanted you to talk about, but that's just about kind of our root digs and what you saw when you were here looking at the short corn.
Okay. As Mark has expressed in the previous pictures, we were brought in to be able to help ascertain what was going on 2 different times during the growing season to look at what we had for root development when the corn was pre-tassel, and then as it had fully tasseled and we were starting to see ear expression. The reason being is that we found early on that the normal statured corn, which will grow upwards of 2.5 meters, maybe even taller, what was going to happen if we did have wind, but also how are those roots expressed versus the short statured corn? And we found that they were about equal. They were running anywhere from 55 to 70 centimeters deep. And then that was in mid-July. And then we came back in August and dug again, and the roots doubled in the short statured corn in depth. So as Mark shows there, that it went down to about 72 inches, but it gives you an idea that that plant with the big leaves, the incredible canopy that it has created, and the leaf area index, that this plant was really going to provide a lot of photosynthesis, put it both into the ear and also into the root system. As it did that, then we were looking with Mark to find out how much of the soil profile were the roots examining. And we found that the roots were examining close to 8,000 cubic inches of soil volume, which just in a manner of speaking, that is getting a lot of soil looked at. So the roots are gaining a lot more water. As Mark said, there's potential that farmers can look at less irrigation. The men that I know I've worked with frequently down in North Texas, where they get an incredible dry period in July and August on into September, where the temperatures will reach 35 to 45 degrees Celsius, and they'll get a lot of wind. And if the corn is weak, it's too tall, it'll blow over, or it will also burn, and they'll lose crop. With this potential in the near future, hopefully in 2022, as I know I sent a team of growers up to meet Mark. You might remember those guys, the fellows from Sunray, Texas.
Yes.
That
Yep.
they are extremely interested in this because they see that they can shade their ground quicker because the ground down in North Texas, if it is exposed to the sun on a 35 degrees Celsius temperature day, it's cooking roots. And they can't afford that because they can't keep up with the water. Their water supply from the Ogallala aquifer, like Mark gets, is so limited anymore that they just barely can keep their plants alive. So they're looking at every opportunity, and this is one that they believe will be really making something happen. Did you have any of the route maps that we accomplished, Mark?
I didn't.
That's okay.
So,
No, I don't. I don't have.
That's
it.
fine.
But I think we better toss it back over to Brian.
You bet.
Yeah, I just want to, our time is running up a little bit here, and I'm not sure how far we still need to go on your side, Mark, but there's really good information. But I definitely, before we wrap things up, and I want to get some more information from Richard. He spent a lot of time here in South Africa, did also some research from their end, and and Richard's got some good information that they want to share from their end.
Yeah, I think
Sorry, do you want to show your presentation, Richard?
we can take a
run
look,
through
or
it
we
quick?
can just talk off the cuff. Either way, if we're pushed for time. I mean, it's what I do each day, and it's what I love. It's great to sit and meet Mark, who's a colleague of mine who I've never met. I have spent some time at our Stanton station, and good to meet you as well, Mike. And it's fascinating to see the benefit of what we do. I think it's the importance of research and development is that we spend millions of dollars every year developing these products like short corn for farmers.
Yep.
And to see the application of that, and to see you guys taking a closer look at the benefit of it and understanding it and working out how we utilize it better is really what we want to see. I can share quickly some of the information that we have. So we've started within breeding, looking at precision breeding. So, how are we more precise with what we do? How do we utilize the limited resources that we have for breeding even better? So I'm going to skip through a couple of slides quickly. There were, you've already seen the tailored solutions from Mark, which is great. It helps me a bit. But we first started, and really what we were doing within breeding around 96 to 2004 was just throughput in a pipeline, really kind of generating a pipeline that evaluated genetics. And from 2005 to 2014, we started being more specific. We had the advent of like the data age, IT tools to look at it, and now we're more precise. So Mark was talking about the gene editing to get a new generation of short corn. So that's really what we're starting to look at. Remember, in breeding, when I start to look at a product, it's 15 years. It's it's about 8 years until it hits the market. So, what we're thinking of is 8 years ahead, and we need to make sure that we're sticking with that technology. There's a lot of it happening in the lab, and that helps us generate throughput in our pipeline. So when you're able to run a year of testing in a lab because you understand the genetics of a plant and you can evaluate it, then you skip a year's testing in the field, so my 8 years becomes 7 years. That helps me a lot.
And to come back on that's exactly the same way. And Mike, you can help me on that. That's exactly the same way as when we build our machinery. When we go to trials, we do lands, we do preps. It takes us 2 to 3 years before we can even get to. So exactly where you guys coming from 7 to 8 years. Yeah, and this is a good example. Why great teams like Orthman and Bayer work together to bring a good product to the market.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got the benefit. We're a global organization. Mark was talking about some of the visitors that he gets at the center. It's fantastic to be able to I know we send visitors over to the US often, and we share a lot of similarities. I was really interested to see the populations that Mark was talking about and the practices. And there's a lot that we can learn from one another. And that's something that we also do utilize within Bayer. So you can see an example, the global germplasm panel that we have to access from Asia, South America, Africa, the United States, and Europe. And that provides a lot of strength. The key to the programs really now is analytics. Data, however you want to pronounce it. But it's interesting, and I'm sure Mark would also be able to comment on it. It's great to have data, but what do you do with it? Because we can generate a lot of data. And sometimes you kind of get the data and you sit there and it's like, this is great, but what am I going to use this for? Or just having the capacity to be able to analyze and visualize the data. When you start to think about germplasm with crop protection along with tillage practices, that's 3 factors. So what's causing your yield bump? Is it the genetics? Is it the crop protection? Or is it the tillage practices? And how do you measure each? Because that's where we need to get to. So we can generate the data, but our ability to analyze and visualize what we're doing is something that we need to work on and that we need to get a lot better with across the board now. And that's been a huge focus for us within breeding. At the same time, how are we more insightful with our data? How are we more precise? Because data quality is everything. It doesn't help that we've planted a trial. We want stress, but we've had 15 inches of rain through the season on it. That's not telling us what we want. So that, and I've met Hendrik before. That rain art shelter is a great idea, and it sounds like something very practical and South African.
Well, we just needed the opposite way around for snow or moisture.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is how representative are we? So, are we sampling in the right environments? And that's a key. And how do we link genetic performance across environments? Because if we can do that, we can start to build up the genetics that work within an environment. And in a gene editing environment, you can think, well, cut and paste, and let's make the variety that we want. Couple that with tailored solutions and crop protection, herbicides, fungicides, and tillage, and then you're really starting to make the most out of what you as a farmer are doing in the field. Super important. And keeping that insight on the field and into the market is really, really key towards us developing products. And then finally,